On the ground. Stay down where a piece of trash like you belongs. The officer spits, the word trash hissing through the curtain of rain. He drives his knee, a single point of agonizing pressure, directly into her spine. The fog-slicked hood of the luxury sedan mirrors the distorted city lights as Officers Kincaid and Miller corner the woman. Her crime? Driving a nice car through the Crestwood estates while black. Kincaid, his face a mask of brutal satisfaction, grabs a handful of her hair and slams her face first against the cold metal of the vehicle. The sound is a dull, wet thud. Her designer handbag, a purchase she'd made to celebrate a hard-won promotion, crashes to the pavement. Its contents, lipstick, keys, a leather-bound planner, scatter and float in the filthy, swirling puddles. Cruising through Crestwood at this hour? Kincaid snarls, his breath hot and foul near her ear. Big mistake. He punctuates the sentence by bringing his heavy-duty baton down across her shoulders. Not a full-force swing, but a sharp, punishing strike. A sickening thud of wood on bone echoes through the deserted, tree-lined street. Please, I'm just... Her words are choked off as Miller, the silent partner, forces her to her knees in the grimy, freezing water pooling by the curb. Shut your mouth, he commands, his voice a low growl. Hands where we can see them. He shoves her head down, forcing her to stare at her own reflection in the oily puddle. The woman's breath catches in a ragged sob she refuses to let escape. Have you ever witnessed an abuse of power so blatant you just knew, it would come back to haunt them? Stick with us, because this is one of those stories. The smug smiles on these officers' faces are about to be wiped clean off when they learn whose bones they just bruised. And hey, while you're here, hit that subscribe button for Beat Stories, because we're about to peel back the layers on this one. Her tailored wool suit, worth more than their combined monthly salaries, soaks through in an instant, the icy water a shocking violation against her skin. As she braces herself on the wet asphalt, a glint of gold catches the streetlight. It's her police academy ring, a symbol of honor and integrity, now submerged in filth. Unseen by the two men, her government-issued phone slides from her jacket pocket. Its screen illuminates the dark pavement with an incoming call. Commissioner Thorne. Neither officer notices. They're too busy laughing, sharing a joke at her expense, two predators enjoying their power under the cloak of night and authority. They have no idea they just arrested their new boss. Captain Isabella Reyes, known to her few trusted colleagues simply as Izzy, arrives in the city of Crestview to take command of the deeply troubled 17th Precinct, a place the rest of the department cynically calls the Garrison. Her reputation is a quiet storm that precedes her. After a decorated career spent systematically dismantling corrupt departments from the inside out across the country, law enforcement circles know her by a single, formidable title: the Reformer. Standing in her sterile hotel room, she methodically unpacks her crisp uniforms, the scent of starch a familiar comfort. On her laptop, the faces of her new command stare back at her from personnel files. Commissioner Thorne's email is stark and to the point, glowing on the screen. The 17th has the highest number of excessive force complaints in the state for the third year running. We need your expertise, Izzy. Burn it down and build it back right. She closes the file with a heavy sigh, a familiar weight settling in her chest. She's seen this rot before, a cancer that metastasizes when good officers stay silent and bad ones are protected by the system. It was for this very reason she decided to spend her first week undercover. A ghost in her own new city. Knowledge is power, and Izzy needed to see the unvarnished truth of her officers' behavior, not the polished performance they would inevitably give once they knew the new captain was watching. She slips out of her travel clothes and into a carefully chosen civilian disguise. Dark, well-fitting jeans, a simple silk blouse, and a tailored blazer. Professional, elegant, but ultimately unremarkable. Her plan was simple, methodical. She would drive through the various neighborhoods of Crestview at night, a silent observer. She would take notes on patrol patterns, document response times, and witness firsthand how her officers interacted with the public. She was especially interested in the stark contrast she knew she'd find between how citizens were treated in affluent areas like Crestwood Estates versus the low-income districts like Riverside. Meanwhile, Officers Kincaid and Miller are on the prowl in their patrol car, cruising through the manicured, silent streets of Crestwood. This neighborhood operates on an unspoken, ugly policy. Any individual who doesn't fit the wealthy, predominantly white profile of its residents gets stopped, questioned, and, if deemed necessary, removed. Another quiet night in paradise, Kincaid says, a bored, arrogant drawl, as he drains the last of his lukewarm coffee. Then he spots it, a high-end black sedan, moving slowly down Maple Avenue, occasionally pulling over. "Check it out," he nudges his partner, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Someone's casing houses. Through their windshield, they watch Izzy's vehicle. A lone black woman driving a car that, in their minds, she has no right to be in. They watch as she occasionally pulls to the curb to make notes on her phone. "Definitely not from around here," Miller agrees, his hand already reaching for the switch to activate the dash cam. "Let's see what she's up to." Izzy clocks the patrol car in her rearview mirror almost immediately. She recognizes the subtle, predatory circling, the way they hang back, waiting for any minor infraction to justify a stop. She's seen this dance 1,000 times. Playing it by the book, she pulls into a clearly marked, legal parking spot to finish her observations for the night, knowing precisely what's coming next. The patrol car's blue and red lights flash on instantly, painting the foggy street in violent, strobing colors. Izzy remains perfectly composed, her hand hovering near her purse on the passenger seat. Inside, her credentials lay ready. If necessary, she'll identify herself. But a cold, calculating part of her wants to see this through. She needs to know what these officers do when there's no badge, no rank, to stop them. Kincaid exits the patrol car with a swagger, his hand already resting on the butt of his holstered firearm. Miller flanks the other side of Izzy's vehicle, his movements a mirror of his partner's aggression. Their entire posture broadcasts hostility, not protection. "Get out of the vehicle, now!" Kincaid shouts, his voice cracking the night's silence. He unholsters his taser without a shred of provocation, its red laser dot dancing across Izzy's chest. With deliberate, measured precision, Izzy raises her hands where the officers can clearly see them. She opens her car door slowly and steps out into the damp, cold air. The fog immediately clings to her clothes, but her expression remains a mask of controlled calm. "Good evening, officers. Is there a problem?" Her voice is steady, professional, betraying none of the cold fury building inside her. Kincaid circles her like a shark, his eyes raking over her expensive clothes. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" he demands. "I'm new in town," she replies, maintaining direct eye contact, her posture deliberately non-threatening. "Just familiarizing myself with the different areas of the city." Miller lets out a derisive snort. "Yeah, right. People like you don't just familiarize themselves with Crestwood unless you're looking for something that doesn't belong to you." The coded, racist language isn't subtle. It's a blunt instrument. Izzy catches every ugly implication, every microaggression. She's investigated dozens of officers just like them, men who see their badge not as a shield to protect, but as a license to harass. "I assure you I'm not doing anything illegal," she says, her voice still even. "I was simply making notes about the community. I'm looking to relocate for work." "ID, now." Kincaid cuts her off, his hand still twitching near his weapon. Izzy gives a slight nod, reaching slowly, deliberately, toward her purse on the passenger seat. "My identification is in my—" Her words are stolen by a gasp as Miller grabs her arm, his grip brutally tight, and yanks her backward. "Hands where we can see them," he shouts, slamming her body against the side of her car. The impact is jarring, knocking her government phone and wallet from her jacket pocket. They clatter onto the wet pavement. "That's my identification right there," Izzy states calmly, nodding her head toward her fallen wallet. "If you'll just—" Kincaid's boot lashes out, kicking the wallet away. It skids across the asphalt and disappears under the car. "We'll get to that," he sneers. "First, you're going to tell us what you're really doing here." The fog thickens, turning the elegant neighborhood into a blurred watercolor of glowing streetlights and deep shadows. Izzy notices the curtains twitching in the windows of nearby mansions. Residents are watching, silent and complicit. She catalogs this detail, adding it to the meticulous mental documentation of every violation, every failure that is occurring. "I work in law enforcement," she states plainly, a final attempt to de-escalate the situation before it spirals further. The two officers exchange a look of disbelief before erupting in coarse, mocking laughter. "Yeah, a security guard maybe," Kincaid mocks, watching the perfume counter at the mall. Benson joins in, his laughter harsh. "Probably watches too many cop shows. Thinks she knows something." Izzy doesn't rise to the bait. Their taunts are irrelevant. Instead, she burns their faces into her memory. Badge numbers 714 and 822. Name tags Kincaid, Miller. Unit designation 17 David. She mentally lists their violations: failure to identify themselves, illegal stop without reasonable suspicion, unprovoked physical contact, intimidation. Her mind works like a camera, recording every detail with cold, clinical precision. "Hands behind your back," Miller orders, pulling out his handcuffs with an unnecessary, aggressive flourish. The fog feels heavier now, colder. Izzy feels the cold, unforgiving metal of the cuffs bite into her wrists as Miller ratchets them down, deliberately, painfully tight. "On your knees!" Kincaid commands, shoving her shoulder hard. Izzy hesitates for a fraction of a second. "That's not necessary. I'm complying fully." For her trouble, Kincaid shoves her again, harder this time. Izzy's knees hit the wet pavement with a jarring impact, sending a blinding shock of pain up her legs. The icy water soaks through her jeans instantly. The two officers tower over her, their flashlights aimed directly in her eyes, creating a disorienting, painful glare. "Please retrieve my identification," Izzy requests, her voice still miraculously calm. "You'll see I'm not a threat." In response, Kincaid strikes her shoulder with his baton. It's not hard enough to break bone, but more than enough to hurt, more than enough to humiliate. "You don't make demands here," he spits. Izzy flinches from the raw pain, but keeps her composure. The damp fog on her face mixes with a single furious tear she refuses to acknowledge. She adds the assault to her mental record: unprovoked physical strike, excessive restraint, forced uncomfortable position. Miller finally radios dispatch with her license plate. "Run this plate for me. Vehicle possibly stolen." The radio crackles back to life after a moment. Plate comes back to an Isabella Reyes, registered 3 years ago in Virginia. No flags. Instead of acknowledging their monumental error, the officers exchange suspicious glances. "Probably using fake registration," Kincaid mutters, just loud enough for her to hear. "Or the car's stolen." Just then, a second patrol car slows as it passes. Sergeant Brody rolls down his window, his face impassive as he surveys the scene. A well-dressed black woman kneeling handcuffed in the fog, under the watch of two of his men. "Everything under control here?" he asks casually. Izzy looks up, a flicker of hope that a superior officer might intervene. "Sir, I've done nothing wrong. These officers—" "We're good," Kincaid interrupts smoothly. "Just dealing with a suspicious person. Possible vehicle theft." Brody nods, barely even glancing at Izzy. "Need any assistance with the suspect?" "Nah, we got this," Miller replies with a cocky smirk. Brody drives away without another word. Izzy watches him go, adding another name and another failure to her mental list. Supervisory neglect. Failure to intervene. The cold has seeped deep into her bones now. She shivers involuntarily as Miller circles her, the beam of his flashlight traveling over her body with an inappropriate, lingering slowness. "Cold, are we?" he taunts. "Should have thought about that before you came to the wrong neighborhood." As Izzy shifts her weight to relieve the searing pressure on her knees, her blazer sleeve rides up. A small, elegant gold ring on her right hand catches the flashlight beam. The design is distinctive, unmistakable to anyone in their line of work. The National Police Academy graduation ring. Miller notices it. He pauses. "Where'd you get that ring? Pawn shop?" "I earned it," Izzy replies quietly. "Playing dress up as a cop won't help you," he sneers, though a flicker of doubt crosses his face. "Probably just some fake costume jewelry." Izzy remains silent, conserving her energy. Through the fog, she can see a framed photo mounted on the patrol car's dashboard. It's the 17th Precinct's team photo. She recognizes several faces from the personnel files she had just been studying, including officers with multiple buried complaints. Her eyes narrow slightly. She memorizes each face. Tomorrow they would all be sitting across a desk from her. The 17th Precinct station buzzes with the flat, fluorescent hum of routine chaos. Izzy sits handcuffed to a cold metal bench in the processing area, her expensive suit now stained, damp, and ruined. Officers pass by, some throwing curious glances, others showing complete indifference. None offer assistance. 2 hours crawl by before anyone even bothers to start her paperwork. Izzy uses the time. She observes everything: shift change protocols, security vulnerabilities, the casual way officers interact with different detainees. She notes which officers laugh at cruel, inappropriate jokes, which ones pointedly look away from the mistreatment of others, and which few, a very small few, show visible signs of discomfort at their colleagues' behavior. "Name?" the processing officer finally asks, his eyes glued to his computer screen. "Isabella Reyes," she answers calmly. "Address?" "I'm relocating. Currently staying at the Crestview Grand Hotel." The officer looks up for the first time, his expression thick with skepticism. "That's a pretty expensive place for someone who was casing houses." "I wasn't casing houses," Izzy corrects him, her voice level. "And I'd like my phone call now." The officer laughs, a short, ugly sound. "You'll get it when we're ready. We're backed up tonight." Izzy catalogs another violation: unnecessary delay of due process rights. 3 more hours pass before they finally grant her call. By then, it's nearly 2 a.m. Standing at the grimy payphone in the holding area, Izzy doesn't dial a lawyer. She dials Police Commissioner Thorne. When he answers, his voice thick with sleep, she speaks in the coded language they established during her hiring. "Commissioner, the Sunset audit has begun, ahead of schedule," she says calmly. "I've encountered several quality control issues requiring immediate documentation, code amber." Thorne is instantly awake and alert. He understands immediately. She's in trouble, conducting an unplanned high-risk integrity test. Location? He asks, his voice all business. 17th Precinct, Officers Kincaid and Miller. Sergeant Brody was also present. Understood. Maintain protocol. Extraction within the hour. Izzy hangs up, feeling the desk sergeant's curious gaze on her. He's noticed something different about her. Her composure, her precise language, the way she carries herself with an unshakable authority despite her disheveled appearance. A flicker of uncertainty crosses his face. 30 minutes later, a call comes into the front desk. The sergeant answers it, his eyes widening slightly as he listens. He looks over at Izzy with a new, profound confusion. "You're being released," he says, his voice a bewildered mumble. "No charges." No apology, no explanation. Just a sudden, inexplicable reversal that raises no alarms for anyone except the increasingly uncomfortable desk sergeant. They return her belongings in a clear plastic bag. Her wallet, her phone. They keep her dignity. Izzy walks out into the pre-dawn darkness, calls a ride-share, and returns to her hotel. Once inside the silent sanctuary of her room, she peels off the wet, muddied clothes, dropping them in a heap on the floor. Dark, ugly purple bruises are already forming where the baton struck her shoulder, where the handcuffs bit deep into her wrists, where her knees slammed into the pavement. Methodically, she photographs each injury, her face grim in the bathroom light. Then, she opens her laptop and begins to type. Every detail is still crystal clear in her mind. Every name, every badge number, every violation, every silent witness. She accesses the secure federal database using her credentials. There they are, previous complaints filed against Officer Kincaid and Officer Miller. 6 excessive force allegations in 2 years. All of them mysteriously closed without action. Reports buried by internal affairs. Witnesses who suddenly became unavailable or recanted their statements. But Izzy sees something else. The pattern extends beyond just these 2 officers. Sergeant Brody's name appears in 3 of the buried reports, noted as the supervising officer who cleared them. The recently retired precinct captain's signature is on each and every dismissal. It's systemic, it's calculated, it's a conspiracy of silence, and it's exactly what she was sent here to eradicate. Izzy touches the angry bruise on her shoulder, wincing as a sharp pain radiates through her arm. Then, her expression hardens into one of pure, unyielding resolve. "I wasn't planning on starting this way," she whispers to the empty room, "but they've just given me exactly what I need." The officers who assaulted her, who called her trash and laughed at her humiliation, have no idea they just handed their new captain the perfect ironclad case for a complete departmental overhaul. The morning shift at the 17th Precinct is business as usual. Officers Kincaid and Miller stroll in, styrofoam cups of coffee in hand, laughing as they recount the highlights of last night's events to their colleagues. "So there she is," Kincaid snickers, mimicking Izzy's kneeling position for an appreciative audience. "Designer clothes soaked to the bone, trying to tell us she's some kind of cop." He pantomimes swinging his baton. "You should have seen her face when I gave her a little love tap." Several officers chuckle. Miller adds, "She was definitely casing houses. Probably has a whole crew waiting to hit Crestwood once she maps out the security systems for them." "Did she resist?" another officer asks, his eyes gleaming with vicarious interest. "Not exactly," Kincaid admits with a shrug. "But she had that attitude, you know, acting all superior like she had rights or something." More laughter ripples through the group. Only Officer Evans, a rookie still in his probationary period, remains silent at the edge of the circle. His discomfort is a palpable thing. But he says nothing, knowing his place. Across town, Izzy sits in Commissioner Thorne's stately office. The dark bruises on her wrists are starkly visible against her skin. She slides a tablet across his polished mahogany desk. It contains her complete, meticulously detailed report. "Jesus," Thorne mutters, his face paling as he scrolls through the high-resolution photos of her injuries. I knew the 17th had problems, but this is... Why you hired me, Izzy finishes for him, her voice flat. What happened to me isn't an isolated incident, Commissioner. It's their standard operating procedure. Thorne reviews her documentation. It is meticulous, comprehensive, and utterly damning. You weren't supposed to start until next week. We should file criminal charges immediately. Izzy shakes her head. Not yet. This gives us something far better. Undeniable, authentic evidence of their behavior when they think no one who matters is watching. I want to use this as the foundation for total structural reform, not just to punish two patrolmen. Thorne studies her, his expression a mixture of horror and newfound respect. What's your plan, Captain? I need 3 days, she says. Let me trace the complaint patterns, identify which officers are salvageable and which are cancerous. We'll need to replace at least half the command structure. The Commissioner nods slowly, his jaw set. You have my full and unconditional authority. Whatever resources you need, they're yours. What would you do in her shoes? Would you back down, or would you double down on your quest for justice? Let us know your strategy in the comments below. And if you're finding this story as gripping as we are, give this video a thumbs up to let us know. That afternoon, when Izzy returns to her hotel, she finds her door slightly ajar. A cold knot tightens in her stomach. She pauses, listening, then pushes it open carefully. Nothing appears to be stolen, but her belongings have been subtly disturbed. Her suitcase is not quite as she left it. The papers on her desk are slightly out of order. Someone has searched her room. She immediately checks the hotel's security system through a secure app on her tablet. No official entry has been recorded, but there's an 8-minute gap in the hallway camera footage, precisely during the time she was meeting with Commissioner Thorne. They would have gotten her location from the rental car information in last night's arrest report. The message is clear, and it's a classic intimidation tactic. We know who you are. We know where you are. We are watching you. Izzy makes a call on her secure line. I need a complete, deep-dive background check on Officers James Kincaid and Thomas Miller. Also Sergeant Michael Brody. Priority Level 1. She ends the call and stands at her window, looking out at the sprawling city she's been tasked with protecting, even from some of its own designated protectors. An anonymous text arrives on her phone. A single, chilling line. Back off, or next time you won't walk away. Izzy stares at the threatening text, screenshots it, and adds it to her ever-growing evidence file. Rather than intimidating her, the message only confirms the depth of the corruption she's facing. It galvanizes her. She accelerates her timetable. This afternoon, she pays a visit to the Internal Affairs Division of the 17th Precinct. She presents herself not as the incoming captain, but as a civilian consultant, there to review their complaint procedures. The IA lieutenant, a man named Barnes, welcomes her with a practiced plastic politeness. The Commissioner asked me to evaluate your processes, Izzy explains, offering expertly falsified credentials that identify her as a civilian oversight specialist. I'd like to see how citizen complaints are handled, from intake to resolution. Of course, Barnes agrees, a little too quickly. We take community concerns very seriously here. Izzy watches his eyes, looking for the tell. I'm particularly interested in excessive force complaints filed over the past 18 months. Something flickers in Barnes's expression. Weariness, maybe even a hint of guilt. Those files would require special clearance. Which I have, Izzy counters smoothly, sliding over the Commissioner's signed authorization. Reluctantly, Barnes provides her access to the digital records. As Izzy delves into the files, a disturbing systemic pattern emerges. Complaints don't just disappear. They are systematically dismantled. Witness statements are subtly altered. Body camera footage is conveniently corrupted or lost. Medical reports are minimized or rephrased, and it's not just Kincaid and Miller. A core group of 10 officers appears repeatedly in these buried complaints. All of them remain on active duty. All of them have received commendations for proactive policing. Meanwhile, across town, Officers Kincaid and Miller are growing increasingly paranoid about the woman they detained. Their usual cocksure confidence has curdled into nervous energy. She said she worked in law enforcement, Kincaid reminds his partner as they patrol. What if she was telling the truth? So what? Miller scoffs, but a tremor of uncertainty edges his voice. Nobody's going to believe some random woman over 2 decorated cops. Kincaid isn't convinced. We should run her name through the system, see what comes up. They convince Sergeant Brody to approve an unauthorized background check, using Izzy's driver's license information from her arrest to run a federal database search. The results that come back are incomplete, but deeply troubling. Isabella Reyes, former military police, current federal law enforcement credentials. The specific agency is restricted, which only deepens their unease. She could be internal affairs, Brody mutters, rubbing his tired face. Or worse, Justice Department. We didn't do anything wrong, Miller insists, though his voice now lacks all conviction. She was suspicious. We followed procedure. You struck her with your baton, Kincaid, Brody reminds him sharply. Was that in your report? A heavy silence falls between the 3 men. We need to make sure she drops this, Kincaid finally says, his voice low. Otherwise we're all exposed. From her unmarked car across the street, Izzy photographs the 3 men through a powerful telephoto lens. She's been tracking their patrol patterns, noting which officers consistently deviate from their assigned routes, which ones target specific demographics. She also notices that Officer Evans, the rookie, consistently breaks from the aggressive patterns of his colleagues. While other officers cluster around minority neighborhoods, Evans diligently maintains his assigned route, treating all civilians with the same respectful demeanor, regardless of their appearance. Izzy makes a note in her file. Potential ally, Officer David Evans. Whoever she is, Sergeant Brody tells Kincaid, his voice tight with worry. She's connected. The commissioner's office just called asking pointed questions about her detention. The next morning, Izzy returns to Crestwood Estates. This time she makes no attempt to conceal her presence. She parks her car legally, steps out holding a professional camera, and begins openly documenting police interactions. She photographs a patrol car stopping a young musician named Leo on his bicycle, noting the officer's aggressive stance, the unnecessary pat-down, and the teenager's resigned expression. He's clearly been through this before. 20 minutes later, Kincaid and Miller spot her. Their patrol car screeches to a halt beside her. Kincaid gets out first, his hand already resting on his weapon. You again, he growls. What the hell do you think you're doing? Izzy continues taking photos, her camera now aimed directly at them, capturing their aggressive approach. Documenting public servants performing their duties in a public space, she replies coolly. A perfectly legal activity. Miller steps forward, deliberately invading her personal space. You're interfering with police business. That's obstruction of justice. I'm standing on a public sidewalk, observing from a legal distance, Izzy counters calmly. There's relevant case law that firmly establishes my right to do so. Would you like the citations? Her calm, confident knowledge of the law clearly unnerves them. Kincaid's face flushes with anger. Listen, lady, I don't know what your game is, but you need to stop this now. His voice drops to a threatening whisper. Things happen in this neighborhood. Accidents. People get hurt. Izzy meets his gaze steadily, her camera still recording. Are you threatening a civilian, Officer Kincaid? That would be a direct violation of Department Policy Section 4.13, as well as state law regarding abuse of authority. Kincaid takes an involuntary step back, stunned that she knows his name and the specific policy number. Before he can respond, 2 more patrol cars arrive, sirens off, but lights flashing. Officers emerge, forming an intimidating circle around Izzy. "Is there a problem here?" Sergeant Brody asks, though his tone makes it clear he's not addressing her. "She's harassing officers, filming us without our consent," Miller claims, his voice high and defensive. "Actually, consent isn't required when photographing public officials performing their public duties," Izzy replies, entirely unfazed by the growing police presence. The courts have been quite clear on this particular issue. Brody turns to her, his voice cold as ice. "I suggest you move along before we find something to charge you with." "Are you suggesting you would fabricate charges, Sergeant Brody?" Izzy asks, her voice loud enough for her camera's microphone to capture every word. "Because that would constitute serious misconduct." The officers exchange uncomfortable glances. This isn't going according to their usual intimidation script. Officer Evans arrives in another patrol car, taking in the tense scene with visible concern. He approaches the group, deliberately positioning himself slightly apart from his colleagues. "Ma'am, is everything okay here?" he asks Izzy directly, breaking protocol by not deferring to the senior officers first. "Shut up, Evans," Kincaid snaps. "She's being detained for questioning." "On what grounds?" Evans asks, his rookie status not preventing his quiet challenge. "What's the reasonable suspicion?" Kincaid turns on him, his face contorted with rage. "Are you questioning me now? Know your place, probationer." The tension escalates to a breaking point until Izzy decides she has captured more than enough evidence. She lowers her camera but keeps it recording audio. "I believe I've observed enough for today," she says calmly. She looks at each officer deliberately, using their names. "Officer Kincaid, Officer Miller, Sergeant Brody, I'll be seeing you all very soon." With that, she turns and walks away, leaving the entire group of officers unsettled and unnerved by her unshakable confidence. Morning light streams through the tall windows of the 17th Precinct's main hall as officers gather for the change of command ceremony. The current captain's retirement has been on the books for weeks, though persistent rumors suggest the commissioner personally accelerated the timeline. Officers stand in formal rows, their dress uniforms crisp, their brass polished to a high shine. In the back row, Kincaid and Miller adjust their collars, whispering about their mysterious neighborhood stalker. "Bet she filed some bogus complaint that'll go nowhere," Kincaid snickers, straightening his badge. "Already took care of it," Miller replies with a smirk. "Barnes and IA owes me one. Any complaint she files will disappear faster than our overtime reports." The precinct hall falls silent as Commissioner Thorne enters, his expression unusually grave. He approaches the podium without the customary handshakes or pleasantries. "Officers of the 17th Precinct," Thorne begins, his voice carrying an authority that commands absolute attention. "Captain Harrison's retirement is effective immediately. The department thanks him for his years of service." Murmurs ripple through the room. The abruptness of it is unexpected. "Recent events have highlighted an urgent need for new leadership and comprehensive reforms in this precinct," Thorne continues. "Effective immediately, I am installing a new commanding officer who has been specifically chosen to implement these necessary changes." When the side door opens, every head in the room turns. Captain Isabella Reyes walks in. She is wearing her full dress uniform, adorned with commendations and service medals that speak to a long and distinguished career. Her posture is military precise, her expression as composed and unreadable as stone. The temperature in the room seems to drop 10 degrees as the shock of recognition dawns on the faces of the assembled officers. In the back row, Kincaid and Miller freeze solid. The blood drains from their faces as they stare, horrified, at the woman they forced to kneel in the rain, the woman they called trash, now standing at the front of the room, 4 gleaming gold bars on her shoulders, signifying her rank as captain. "I present Captain Isabella Reyes," Thorne announces. Her distinguished career includes decorated service as a military police officer, extensive federal oversight experience, and the successful implementation of reform programs in 3 major departments across the country. She has my complete confidence and my full authority. Izzy approaches the podium with measured, deliberate steps. Her eyes scan the room, pausing for a fraction of a second on each face involved in her detention. Kincaid, Miller, Brody, and the others who stood by. She notes their reactions: shock, fear, utter confusion. But her own expression reveals nothing. "Thank you, Commissioner," she begins, her voice steady and authoritative, amplified by the microphone. "I believe in the vital role that law enforcement plays in the safety of a community, but that role depends entirely on 3 pillars: trust, integrity, and the equal protection of all citizens under the law." The room remains deathly silent. She continues, her words clear and sharp as glass. "Starting today, this precinct will implement new body camera protocols. All interactions with the public will be recorded, without exception. All officers will undergo mandatory and continuous bias training, de-escalation certification, and regular performance reviews focused on constitutional policing." She turns a page in her notes with deliberate slowness. "Accountability will be paramount. Citizen complaints will be investigated thoroughly and transparently by an outside agency. There will be no exceptions, no matter an officer's rank or tenure." Izzy makes direct eye contact with Kincaid, then Miller, then Sergeant Brody. Each man seems to physically shrink under her unwavering gaze. Those who cannot or will not adapt to these standards of professional excellence will not remain on this force. She closes her portfolio with a sharp snap that makes several officers flinch. "Officers Kincaid, Miller, and Sergeant Brody will report to my office immediately following this ceremony. Officer Evans, you as well." The named officers exchange panicked glances. Evans looks confused but stands a little taller, his expression resolute. After the ceremony, Izzy enters her new office. She removes her formal dress jacket, carefully hanging it on a wooden coat stand. The movement reveals the dark, ugly bruises still starkly visible on her wrists from the over-tightened handcuffs. Kincaid, Miller, and Brody enter first, standing uncomfortably at attention, avoiding her eyes. Evans follows, maintaining a noticeable distance from the other 3. Izzy sits behind her large desk, opens a folder, and looks up at the men who assaulted her just 3 nights ago. 3 nights ago, she begins, her voice conversational, as if she were discussing the weather. "I was illegally detained, physically assaulted, and systematically humiliated by officers of this precinct while conducting a preliminary observation assessment of this district." She turns the folder around, revealing a series of high-resolution photographs, close-ups of her bruised wrists, the angry baton mark on her shoulder, her mud-stained, ruined suit. "Following this incident, my hotel room was illegally searched. I received threatening text messages, and an unauthorized background check was run on my federal credentials." Kincaid swallows. A loud, dry click in the silent room. Miller stares fixedly at the floor. Brody's face has turned a pasty, ashen gray. "Officer Evans," Izzy says, addressing the rookie directly. "You may be wondering why you're here?" "Yes, Captain," he answers, his voice clear. "You're here because during yesterday's confrontation you attempted to de-escalate. You questioned improper procedure. You showed the integrity these men so profoundly lack." She gestures dismissively toward the others. "You're being reassigned to head up our new community relations unit, effective immediately. You're dismissed." Evans blinks in surprise. Then a look of understanding dawns on his face. He gives a sharp salute, turns, and exits the office. The door closes behind him with an air of finality. Izzy rises slowly from her chair, walking around her desk to stand directly before the 3 remaining officers. Despite being shorter than all of them, she somehow towers over them, her presence filling the entire room. I was recruited for this precinct after serving on the Federal Law Enforcement Reform Task Force, she reveals, letting the weight of that title sink in. My detention was unplanned, but it provided invaluable, first-hand evidence of exactly why I was brought here. She taps the thick folder on her desk. Every violation, every biased comment, every procedural failure has been recorded, documented, and verified. The illegal search of my room was captured on hotel security cameras, the footage of which I had a federal lab enhance. The threatening text has been traced directly to Officer Miller's personal cell phone. The men stand in stunned, horrified silence as she continues, her voice never rising, yet carrying the unmistakable weight of absolute authority. You have exactly 1 hour to make a decision. You can resign from this department immediately, or you can face full administrative charges and criminal prosecution for assault under color of authority, conspiracy, and a host of other felonies. The choice is yours. The last vestiges of color drain from the officers' faces as they finally, completely realize the woman they humiliated now holds their entire futures in her bruised hands. The 17th precinct transforms overnight. Officers arriving for their shifts find internal affairs investigators from the state level, not their own compromised IA unit, conducting interviews in private rooms. Technology specialists are busy installing new, tamper-proof body camera systems. Training coordinators are posting schedules for mandatory sessions on constitutional policing and bias recognition. At the center of this controlled whirlwind stands Captain Reyes, methodically dismantling decades of entrenched corruption with the precision of a surgeon. By noon, Sergeant Brody has submitted his resignation. He cleans out his locker under the watchful, silent eyes of the state IA officers, avoiding eye contact with his former colleagues. His career in law enforcement is over, but the negotiated silence agreement he signs shields him from criminal charges in exchange for his full and truthful testimony against higher-ranking officers, including the recently retired captain. Kincaid and Miller, however, refuse to go quietly. Emboldened by years of impunity, they arrive at the precinct flanked by their union representatives, confident that the blue wall of silence will protect them as it always has. Captain, the police union attorney begins officiously as they enter Izzy's office. These are very concerning allegations, of course, but my clients categorically deny any wrongdoing during what they maintain was a lawful detention of a suspicious person. Izzy doesn't even look up from the paperwork on her desk. Your clients have been suspended without pay, pending investigation. Their badges and service weapons are to be surrendered immediately. On what grounds? The attorney demands, his voice rising. This appears to be a personal vendetta, a clear conflict of interest. Now Izzy raises her eyes, and her gaze is as hard and cold as steel. On the grounds of excessive force, false imprisonment, filing a false police report, conducting an illegal search, making terroristic threats, and multiple civil rights violations under federal statute. She slides a single flash drive across the polished surface of her desk. The evidence against them is extensive and irrefutable. The attorney picks up the drive cautiously. We'll need time to review this. You have until the disciplinary hearing on Friday. 3 days, Izzy says. Then she turns her attention to Kincaid and Miller directly. Unless, of course, you'd like to reconsider the resignation offer. This is bullshit, Kincaid spits, his face red with impotent rage. It's our word against yours. Izzy allows herself the slightest, coldest of smiles. Actually, it's your word against mine. The dash cam footage from your own vehicle, the audio recording from my camera, the testimony of 6 civilian witnesses who have since come forward, and your own text messages. But by all means, let's let the hearing committee decide. After they leave, Officer Evans knocks tentatively on her door. Captain, the community leaders are here for the meeting you scheduled. Izzy welcomes a diverse group representing the various neighborhood associations of her precinct. For the first time in the 17th precinct's history, residents are being invited to express their concerns directly to the command staff. They speak of racial profiling, of selective enforcement, of harassment and disrespect. Izzy takes notes, asks clarifying questions, and, most importantly, she listens. This won't change overnight, she tells them honestly, but it will change. You have my word. Across town, City Manager Greer receives an urgent, panicked call from the mayor. Have you seen this? Reyes is tearing the 17th precinct apart. The union is threatening a massive lawsuit against the city. I'm handling it, Greer assures him, though anxiety sharpens the edge of his voice. He immediately schedules a meeting with Captain Reyes. When they meet that afternoon in his office, Greer doesn't bother with pleasantries. Captain, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, this level of disruption is causing serious concerns at the highest levels. Perhaps a more gradual, less confrontational approach would be more prudent. Izzy responds by placing a thick, heavy binder on the table between them. This, she says calmly, contains 43 documented cases of civil rights violations committed by 17th Precinct officers over the past 18 months. All of them were buried by your Internal Affairs Division. All of them represent significant potential lawsuits against this city. Greer stares at the binder as if it were a venomous snake. The statute of limitations hasn't expired on any of them, Izzy continues, her voice like ice. One successful lawsuit could cost taxpayers millions. 43 of them would bankrupt the city. What do you want? Greer asks quietly, his arrogance gone. Your full and public support for comprehensive reforms, immediate budget approval for new training and equipment, and absolutely no interference with my personnel decisions. Ever. Greer hesitates for a long moment, then gives a slow, reluctant nod. You'll have it. By Thursday, Izzy's investigation has expanded. Electronic records reveal a clear pattern of evidence tampering in cases involving excessive force. The digital trail leads directly to Lieutenant Barnes in Internal Affairs, and beyond him, to the recently retired Captain Harrison. Commissioner Thorne reviews Izzy's latest findings with growing concern. This is worse than we ever thought. It usually is, Izzy replies. The corruption is systemic. We need to consider criminal charges for several more officers, including Harrison. The political fallout will be significant, Thorne warns. The liability of doing nothing, Izzy counters, is far greater. Meanwhile, emboldened by the changes at the precinct, community members who witnessed Izzy's detention begin coming forward with their own stories and evidence. Mrs. Chen, whose high-definition security cameras captured the entire incident from her front window, provides the complete, unedited footage to a local investigative journalist named Sarah Winters. Winters begins connecting the dots between this one incident and the sudden, drastic departmental overhaul. Her investigation uncovers dozens of similar incidents in Crestwood Estates alone. Minorities detained without cause, subjected to excessive force, then slapped with bogus charges like resisting arrest or disorderly conduct to justify the officer's actions. By Friday morning, her explosive exposé runs on the front page of the local paper. New police captain experienced department's bias firsthand. The article includes still images from Mrs. Chen's security footage, showing Izzy being forced to her knees in the rain. The images spread like wildfire across social media, accompanied by a growing roar of calls for accountability. The disciplinary hearing room is filled beyond capacity. Community members, off-duty officers, and media representatives crowd the space. Kincaid and Miller arrive with their union attorneys, their earlier confidence now replaced with a visible, sweating anxiety. Izzy presents the evidence methodically, her voice calm and unwavering. She begins with her own detailed account, supported by the graphic photographs of her injuries. The dashcam footage plays next, clearly showing the officer's unprovoked aggression from the very beginning. Then, Mrs. Chen's security camera footage provides a clear, unobstructed view of Kincaid striking Izzy with his baton. The officer's attorneys attempt a flurry of procedural objections, questioning the admissibility of certain evidence, the chain of custody, Izzy's objectivity given her personal involvement. Each objection is calmly and systematically overruled by the hearing committee, which now includes newly appointed civilian oversight members. Then come the other witnesses. Previous victims of Kincaid and Miller's misconduct, people whose complaints had been buried for years, testify one after another. A college student detained and harassed while walking home from the library. A delivery driver stopped and searched 3 times in a single week. An elderly man manhandled on his own front yard while gardening. The pattern becomes impossible to ignore or explain away. The officers' body cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned during each of these incidents. Their written reports described aggressive, non-compliant behavior that was flatly contradicted by every witness statement. Internal Affairs had dismissed every single complaint without a single follow-up interview. As the mountain of evidence grows, Kincaid and Miller can only sit and watch their careers crumble in real time. Their attorneys pass them increasingly desperate notes, suggesting new strategies, different arguments, but nothing can counter the overwhelming, airtight case Izzy has assembled. The hearing committee votes unanimously for termination. Additionally, they recommend the district attorney file criminal charges for civil rights violations, falsifying police reports, and witness intimidation. As they leave the hearing room in disgrace, their careers in ruins, Kincaid passes close to Izzy. "This isn't over," he mutters under his breath, his eyes filled with hate. "You've made enemies you don't even know about yet." Izzy meets his gaze evenly, without flinching. "That's exactly the mindset that brought us here today, Mr. Kincaid. The difference is, you're no longer in a position to act on it." She watches them walk away, their badges and service weapons already surrendered, their authority stripped away. Not as an act of vengeance, but as an act of absolute necessity. The system cannot function when those entrusted with its power abuse it so blatantly. Back in her office, Commissioner Thorne and the mayor are waiting. "The union is still threatening a massive lawsuit," the mayor says without preamble. "Let them," Izzy responds calmly. "Our documentation is impeccable, and Officer Evans has already agreed to testify about the culture of misconduct he witnessed during his probationary period." The mayor studies her with a newfound respect. "You've certainly made an impression, Captain, though not everyone is happy about these changes." "Reform isn't designed to make people happy, Mr. Mayor," Izzy replies, turning to look out her window at the city below. "It's designed to make systems just." Outside, she tells the assembled reporters, "This isn't the end. This is just the beginning of real accountability." 6 months pass. The 17th precinct is a different world. The physical space itself reflects the change. Walls that once displayed only officer commendations now showcase community partnership awards and letters of appreciation from citizens. At the morning briefing, Izzy addresses her officers, many of them new faces recruited specifically for their commitment to ethical policing. "Our quarterly results show significant progress," she tells them, projecting statistics onto a large screen. Excessive force complaints are down 83%, arrest rates are down 12%, while successful prosecutions are up 20%. The officers nod with professional satisfaction. These numbers represent more than just statistics. They reflect a fundamental shift in philosophy from quantity of arrests to quality, from confrontation to de-escalation, from fear to trust. Most significantly, Izzy continues, response times have improved in all neighborhoods equally, no more prioritizing Crestwood Estates over Riverside. Sergeant Evans, recently promoted, now leads the Community Engagement Unit, which has become the precinct's pride and joy. His team develops innovative programs, citizen police academies taught in multiple languages, youth mentorship initiatives, and regular town hall forums where officers are required to listen more than they speak. The Coffee with a Cop program has been particularly successful, Evans reports. We've had over 300 residents participate in the past month alone. In her office, Izzy reviews applications for a new recruitment program she established, offering scholarships to local residents interested in law enforcement careers, with a special emphasis on candidates from underrepresented communities. These 5 candidates all meet our new criteria, her assistant notes. 2 are bilingual, and 1 has a background in social work. Schedule interviews for all of them, Izzy approves, and follow up with last month's recruits. Make sure they're receiving the proper support at the academy. The ripple effects of the changes at the 17th spread throughout the city. Other precinct captains, initially skeptical and resistant, now quietly consult with Izzy about implementing similar reforms. Police academies request her training materials. National law enforcement journals publish case studies on the Crestview transformation. The City Council, whose members initially resisted her methods, now cite the 17th's improved metrics with pride. The Budget Committee unanimously approves funding to expand the new body camera program to all precincts citywide. At a council meeting, Izzy concludes her 6-month assessment with the most telling statistic of all. Civilian cooperation with investigations has increased by 47%. When communities trust their police, they become partners in public safety. 1 year has passed since Izzy first walked through the doors of the 17th precinct. She strolls along the tree-lined streets of Crestwood Estates, the very same neighborhood where 2 officers once forced her to her knees in the rain. Now, residents wave as she passes. Some stop to chat, sharing community updates or expressing their gratitude for specific improvements. "Captain Reyes," Mrs. Chen calls out from her garden. "The new youth center opens next week. Will you speak at the ceremony?" "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Izzy promises with a genuine smile. She continues her walk, passing a small shopping mall where a familiar, resentful face catches her attention. Former Officer Miller, now wearing the ill-fitting uniform of a mall security guard, notices her at the same moment. His expression hardens with bitterness, but he quickly averts his gaze, unwilling and unable to meet her eyes. Izzy doesn't linger or gloat. His current position isn't a personal victory for her. It is simply the natural consequence of his choices. She'd heard that Kincaid faced harsher consequences, now serving probation for federal civil rights violations after the criminal investigation concluded. The system, she reflects, does not forgive those who so profoundly betray their oath. Later that afternoon, Izzy meets with the newest academy graduates assigned to her precinct. These young officers have never known the 17th's old, toxic culture. They have been trained from day one under the reformed standards of accountability and respect. "Your badge carries both authority and immense responsibility," she tells them, her voice carrying the quiet weight of personal experience. How you use that authority defines not just your career, but the safety and trust of the communities you are sworn to serve. She doesn't share the story of her own detention. That narrative has served its purpose and now belongs to history. Instead, she focuses on their future. The hardest moments of your career will test your commitment to justice over convenience, to protection over power. Those moments will define who you are as officers and as people. That evening, In her quiet office, Izzy reviews the latest performance reports. The crime statistics tell only part of the story. It's the qualitative metrics, increased witness cooperation, high levels of community engagement, improved officer retention, that paint the most complete picture of a department that has transformed its very soul. Her walls display photographs from community events, positive news coverage, and a framed, handwritten note from a teenage girl that reads, "Thank you for making me feel safe in my neighborhood for the first time." Izzy touches the frame, gently. This is why the battles mattered. Not for policy manuals or statistical improvements, but for the lived reality of people who deserve both safety and dignity. As the setting sun casts long shadows across her office, she reflects on the long journey from humiliation in the rain to systemic transformation. The work is never truly finished, but the foundation has been laid for something better, something that honors the true meaning of the words to protect and serve. Captain Reyes didn't just clean up a precinct, she rebuilt its very foundation on trust and integrity. If her journey from victim to visionary inspires you, make sure you're subscribed to Beat Stories and ring that notification bell. We believe that stories like these aren't just entertainment. They're proof that one person's courage can indeed change the system. Share this video with someone who needs to see that change is possible. Until next time, stay vigilant and keep demanding the truth.